So this next story shows you the scumbaggery that we're dealing with in the Senate. This is from The Intercept. U.S. Senate's first bill in midst of shutdown is a bipartisan defense of the Israeli government from boycotts. Yeah. That says a lot, doesn't it? Now, other people have made this point that this so-called government shutdown, or partial government shutdown as they call it, if you notice the people who are impacted by it, it's a government shutdown for all working class people. So, government workers who need a paycheck, they're not getting their paycheck and they still have to show up to work. That's just one example of many examples of people this government shutdown is impacting. I'm having trouble with slapping together sentences today for whatever reason. But it leaves unscathed all the things that the rich benefit from. And all the things that the elites care deeply about. Those are off the table, but all the things for working class people, yeah, okay, you're going to feel the pain. So that's one of the many reasons why Donald Trump, at least to this point, has not budged. And he's like, give me a wall. I want a wall. Tremendous wall. And even when Democrats are like, okay, we will give you border security, and we will give you border security that will work even better than the wall, he's like, no, I want the wall. So he's not budging because he doesn't care. Most of the people who are impacted by this government shutdown overwhelmingly vote Democratic. So he doesn't give a shit. And he's literally listening to Rush Limbaugh and Ann Coulter. But in the midst of all of this chaos, the U.S. Senate is like, let's do something against the First Amendment to help Israel. So it's a Marco Rubio bill. But here are the Democrats who supported the previous, more draconian version of this bill. Bob Menendez, Joe Manchin, Ben Cardin, Ron Wyden, Gary Peters, and Debbie Stabenow. And now they're saying Chuck Schumer will as well. So it looks like this has a very good chance of passing. And then, what's going to happen in the House of Representatives? Is Nancy Pelosi going to support this? How many Democratic votes are going to go against the First Amendment? And by the way, I'm not just saying that. There's a U.S. court in Kansas and there's a U.S. court in Arizona that struck down this idea as unconstitutional. And there are 26 states that currently have anti-Israel boycott laws. So it was slapped down in two, and if all the other, if others go through a court case, or if they actually pass this in the Senate, it's bound to have a lawsuit, and then it's overwhelmingly likely that it's going to get struck down. Why? Because it's obviously unconstitutional. I mean, it depends which provision you're talking about in which state, but basically the core of it is, let's not allow any federal government contracts to go to companies or individuals that are down with boycotting Israel. So you're not allowed to, let's say that's your livelihood. You have a federal government contract and for whatever service you provide, and they're ruling out doing business with you simply because you have an opinion that perhaps Israel should be boycotted to give the Palestinians their human rights and to craft a peace deal in the Middle East. That would disqualify you from getting a government contract. So that is clearly the government specifically singling out an ideology and saying, we're not okay with that. We're going to take away your ability to earn a living. So 2 courts have said, yeah, that's unconstitutional. You can't do that. But that's the first order of business in the Senate. Bipartisan. Look at our fucking priorities, man. Protect Israel at all costs and crack down on the First Amendment and do not believe in free speech. By the way, I'm waiting. Where are all them so-called free speech warriors? I mean, listen, you guys know I consider myself an actual free speech warrior because I defend it even in instances where I really dislike the speech. That's how you know that you're dealing with somebody who's actually principled on the issue. They're willing to say, even though I fucking hate this person or that idea or whatever, I'm still going to defend it. But you'll notice something about many of the so-called free speech warriors. They only trot out the arguments when they happen to ideologically agree with it. And there's a lot of silence. And let's be clear, as far as a crackdown on free speech goes, oftentimes we're just dealing with the principle of free speech, not the legality of it. This is an instance where it's the legality of it. This is an instance where we're talking about the law. So it's an even clearer example and spot-on example of, a crackdown on the First Amendment. And everybody should stand up against it. But unfortunately, you're going to hear a lot of crickets.